Hi guys! First of all, let me apologise if I'm a bit incoherent or a bit spacey in this video. I'm having a very tough, intense, stressful couple of weeks in work, and although it's a Sunday afternoon, I'm absolutely shattered. I'm completely exhausted basically. I have another tough week ahead before I finish for the Christmas holidays, or the midwinter holidays as I like to think of them. So yeah, I mightn't really be particularly coherent. My train of thought is probably a bit all over the place, but I wanted to do a video anyway, and I might actually do a few videos now and have them ready to go up, because I have no idea how much time I'm going to have in the next week. I'm probably going to have precious little, and then, you know, Christmas is going to be on top of us, and, you know, I'll have shopping to do and all that kind of thing. So yeah, something that's been coming up a little bit in the YouTube community at the moment, or well, there have been two videos that have talked about it anyway, is the question of ritual and why, like the whys of ritual, and also little bits and pieces about daily practice and things like that. And this is something I talked about excuse me, I talked about it on the channel a couple of weeks ago. I did a video that kind of touched on daily practice, small rituals, and simpler rituals and things like that. And yeah, I was kind of thinking at that time about the differentiation between those sort of big rituals that are more like circle casting, and those kind of smaller rituals that can be part of a daily practice, or which for me are starting to become kind of more central to my practice than the bigger rituals. They're little moments that can happen really any time and anywhere, and they're not scripted. Well, they can be scripted, but they don't have to be scripted. And I've realised in the last couple of months that I actually find those moments to be probably more powerful than anything I ever experience in ritual. And that's really saying quite a lot, because I have had some quite powerful ritual experiences. And that got me thinking that maybe I was going about ritual a little bit wrong. I mean, obviously, because my path is very much nature-based, earth-based. It's based on the world around us and my experiences of life, of the world, of Earth, and of the cosmos in general. So obviously, being out in nature, that's a whole other video I could make, is talking about that differentiation between the human experience and human creations and then nature. I don't generally like to make that distinction, because I see nature as encompassing everything, but you know what I mean. It's not that surprising maybe that I have my more profound experiences when I'm out in nature, when I'm outside near wildlife and near greenery and near trees, you know, in a place that is maybe slightly more wild and natural than a city centre, or a street of buildings, or the suburbs, or whatever. But it still got me thinking that maybe I was not quite managing to get that feeling that I experience into my rituals, which is really what I'm aiming to do. It's definitely a different thing for me. I do my rituals indoors, and it's more of a formal kind of celebratory thing, rather than a spontaneous outbursting of emotion, which is often what comes over me. And when I experience those sort of moments of solitary bliss, I suppose, out in nature. But yeah, I've been kind of leaning towards trying to find ways to maybe build a daily practice and integrate small rituals into my life. And I talked about that in that previous video, which I might link below. But I hadn't really solidified my thoughts on it, I suppose, and I hadn't really figured out how I wanted to go about that, or what that would mean for my current ritual structure. I was kind of thinking that I would leave my rituals as they are and continue to do those in the way that I have been doing, which is basically that I do a pretty formal ritual for the full moon, the dark moon, and all the Sabbaths. I was kind of thinking that maybe I would do small rituals maybe alongside those bigger rituals for the full moon and the dark moon, or instead, but I really hadn't solidified where I was going with that. And then yeah, I watched 2 videos, one by Egyptian, which was, I think it was called The Why of Ritual, something like that. I'll link that below as well. Where she talked about the tendency in people when they're coming into paganism first. And she was kind of talking about younger people mostly, but I think this does happen to anyone really, no matter what your age or experience when you're starting out on this path. Because most pagans, most neo-pagans, they do sort of, we do tend to figure out our own path somewhat. There's always some element of putting our own shape on it, and there's an awful lot of experimentation and kind of figuring it out and getting into it and figuring out how a ritual works. And I think it's not just young people who feel like, as Egyptian was saying, who feel this need to be constantly doing ritual, you know, that they need to be doing something daily, and that they need to have this ritual structure, and that they need to do the ritual when they said they would. And I suppose it can become a bit overwhelming or a bit, and then what Egyptian was saying is that then you end up just going through the motions, because you're doing ritual not because you really, really want to, or you have some need or want, or some great emotion that you're putting into that ritual, but just because you feel like you should. And she basically, it's her opinion that you shouldn't do ritual unless you do have that, unless it's coming from a place of emotion. And then Kellyanne of the Four Queens, she made a video which covered, she kind of made a bit of a response to that, and then she talked more about her daily practice and where her inspiration for ritual comes, and a few other things as well in that video. I think watching those 2 videos kind of solidified something for me, and I realised this is something I've been kind of thinking for a while. I have been thinking about breaking down my rituals because I have a couple of different components in them, and I have been kind of thinking, well, maybe I'll just focus on one of those components at a time. For example, do my dedication to Cosmos/Goddess at one time and just focus on that, and then another time think about the ancestors or the earth. So I'd been kind of reaching this point of feeling like I wanted things to be maybe a little bit more spontaneous, and maybe a little bit more meaningful, and giving me a bit more space to really get into what I'm doing when it comes down to it. And having watched these videos now, I'm starting to think that rather than having another rigid system where, say, for example, at the full moon, I would honour the ancestors. At the dark moon, I would commune with deities, individual deities was something I was thinking about, and then that maybe once a week on a specific day that I would do another mini ritual to Goddess in general, which is the main kind of dedicatory part, that kind of an address to Goddess that I previously had been doing as sort of central part of my ritual. But now I'm starting to think that that's still too formulaic for me, and I'm kind of hitting up against that problem that Egyptian was talking about, where I'm still doing it because I feel like I should, or because I have a particular structure that tells me, or a schedule that tells me this is when you're supposed to do it. And I was talking about motivation and things like that in my last video, and finding the motivation to stick to your ritual schedule, and I was even saying that if you're finding that you're not sticking to it, that there's probably something wrong there, and that you maybe need to address why that is. I suppose for me, I didn't think there was a problem because I wasn't having difficulty actually keeping to that schedule. It was more that it was starting more and more to feel a bit hollow. So basically I'm reaching a point where I think I need to allow myself to be a little bit more spontaneous when it comes to ritual. And I have to say that spontaneity is not my strong suit. I like to be very organised, and I have a tendency to rigidity, and a tendency to just overanalyze things, and for everything to need to fit neatly into boxes. And if I'm told to be spontaneous and just to do something off the top of my head, I will panic, and I just won't be able to. I won't be able to think of what to say or what to do. So I think maybe that actually I've only reached a point now where I can even start to think about being more spontaneous about my rituals, and about how they work, and how they're shaped, and the content of them, because I've built up a year, well, more than a year, but a solid year, and well, a year and 3 months, a solid year and 3 months of continuous practice, where I've tried out different things in ritual. I've tried out different addresses, I've tried out you know, focusing on different elements, different aspects of the earth, different aspects of deity and different ways to commune with deity and that kind of thing. And I've reached a point where I kind of know what I'm aiming for to an extent. And I think that if I hadn't got to that point, I wouldn't have been able to start out cold, just being spontaneous and doing what I felt like doing. Because in a way that was my whole problem when I started back onto this path. My whole problem was that I didn't have a structure and that I didn't have anything to work with. Because if I just sat down, say a year and a half ago, if I decided I feel like doing a ritual, I'm going to do what comes naturally to me. I would just sit down, I might light a candle, and I would have no idea where to go from there. I would have no idea what kind of words I might say, what kind of focus I might have. So I actually think that I think it's very true that, particularly in the beginning, that pagans or witches or all of that, all of those people in this community, that we have a tendency to be too rigid and to be very, to kind of put ourselves into boxes and to feel like we have to do things a certain way. For a lot of people, it's casting a circle in a very Wiccan kind of way, calling the quarters, the elements and all that kind of thing. And it definitely doesn't work for anyone, but I actually am starting to think that you do need some sort of, probably a fairly rigid schedule to begin with. Now maybe this doesn't work for everybody. There are probably people who, if they allowed themselves the space and the time to sit down, just coming to it cold, having never done ritual before, to sit down and do a ritual, to express their experience of the divine, their experience of cosmos. Maybe some people would be fine with that and they would be satisfied with the results, but I know that I wasn't, and that's why I started trying to do this in a very formulaic kind of way. That's why I decided to start writing set rituals for all the Sabbaths and writing set rituals for the dark moon and the full moon and performing them. In a way, it was sort of like an experiment, and I did kind of feel that the first year was going to be quite rigid and quite a learning process. And I mean, I printed off words that I would say in every ritual because I didn't know them off by heart. I'm pretty much at the point now where most of those main addresses, I do know them off by heart. But I was pretty much reprinting, like editing and reprinting them every time I did a ritual, because bits would be, I would take bits out, I would put other bits in. And I was just, it was kind of like an experiment in finding those words, those focuses and those actions and the order in which those things ran in that most spoke to me and that I most felt expressed my own experience of the universe. Which is, it's a pretty tall order really. And I don't know if I don't know if I feel like I've gotten there. Like I said, I've been finding my rituals to be slightly more hollow. And I think it is because I've gotten to the point where I know those words back to front and I've done those actions again and again. And rather than finding, like some people do, that they become more meaningful the more I repeat them, I'm definitely starting to feel like I'm being a bit hemmed in and there's not enough space left. There's not enough space in my ritual for the unexpected, to allow myself to actually experience anything, because I'm too busy going through the motions and reading the correct words or repeating the correct words. I'm kind of going around in circles here a little bit, but I definitely feel like I think I'm at some sort of crossroads now in my spirituality, or at some sort of new turning point of change. I feel like things are going to start getting a bit mixed up for me now, that things are going to start moving in a slightly different direction when it comes to my practice and how that works for me. And I'm very interested in things like cultivating a daily practice that is actually quite formulaic to an extent. I mean, something as simple as saying a few words, lighting a candle and using prayer beads maybe with a mantra or a phrase that I repeat, and then doing 5 or 10 minutes meditation, that kind of thing. I think I like having the pattern, and I like having something that I do every day, words that I speak repeatedly and that kind of thing. But I think I'm ready now to open myself up to being a bit, thinking outside of the box when it comes to ritual and allowing myself to express myself more, rather than just fitting myself into some sort of narrow category or narrow framework of neo-paganism and doing what other people are doing and repeating words that other people have used that, you know, that have moved me. I think I've gotten to that point now where I'm comfortable enough in my spirituality, in my beliefs, and in what I'm trying to do, that I can actually do that. I just wanted to put that out there because I really love those two videos that Egyptian and Kellyanne did, or Olivia and Kellyanne, that they did. I really love those videos, and I really agreed with everything they were saying. But I think it needs to be said that not everybody, maybe not anybody, can start off cold at the beginning of their path, having only dipped their toe into the waters of ritual. I don't think it's necessarily feasible to expect yourself to be able to be completely spontaneous and to be able to, I suppose it's like a language ritual. I think it's like you learn what actions and what words trigger the right responses within you, because you have emotions, you have feelings, you have responses to things in the world, to the universe, to deity. You have all these kind of churning emotions and things going on in your mind, and I think if you're not in the habit of doing ritual, and if you haven't learned some sort of formulaic way of doing it, if you haven't done something repeatedly like that and seen how it works for you, I don't think you can straight off know how to respond to specific emotions and specific thoughts and specific impulses off the bat. I think the more you do ritual and the more repetitive it is, I suppose, for a while, the better you start to learn, when I feel this is what action I should take. These are the words I should say. This is what will best reflect that on the physical plane. It's like, I suppose you're making a connection between your conscious mind and your unconscious mind, and it's just finding that key. It's finding that language that will connect the two. I don't think it happens overnight, and I have a feeling that maybe the best way to go about it is to do that formulaic ritual for a while and just see where it takes you. And you probably will reach a point where you're like, oh no, this doesn't completely work for me. I don't know why I'm doing X, Y, Z. I'm not interested in the elements. I'm not interested in, gender duality or whatever it is that isn't working for you. I think until you do it, and until you do it quite religiously, excuse the phrasing, no pun intended, until you do it quite in quite a structured and repetitive kind of way, I don't necessarily think that you will reach a point where you can open yourself up fully and fully express yourself, fully express your unconscious, and fully express your true deep story of the universe that everyone carries around inside them. I think it just takes a while to be able to get that out in a more spontaneous and in a more free kind of way. I think I've said everything I wanted to say at this point. I'll definitely be making more videos on this as I go forward, because although I've definitely incorporated a few different types of small rituals into my daily life, it's been quite difficult for me. I've said before that I have quite a scattered kind of existence right now. I sleep in 3 different houses during the week. I keep telling everyone that, and most people think I'm insane when I say that. So it's kind of difficult for me to cultivate a really set routine. But that's something I'll have to work with as well. I have to accept that I'm not always going to have my altars to hand. I might have to decide to set up an altar in my parents' house, and maybe even something in my boyfriend's house, which I feel a little bit less comfortable about, because in my parents' house I have I have a room that I can do that in that is private and it's mine. Because I don't have any siblings and they have a large house, so there's plenty of room, whereas obviously in my boyfriend's house I don't have a space that is mine. So I'm not sure how I'm going to come around that one. One of the ideas I had, I don't want to ramble on too much, but one of the ideas I had was that maybe I might set up an altar in different houses to different deities, because I've been feeling called to work with an awful lot of different deities at the moment. The Morrigan is always there for me. I haven't been working with her much in the last couple of months, but she's always there in the background. And if you've been watching some of my videos, you probably know that Ganesha has been kind of around around in the background for me for a while now, and I definitely want to step up working with him. Gaia is a big one as well. There's another deity which I don't think I'm going to say yet on camera, that came up actually in my reading from Kimmy at Autumn Star Moon. Maybe I should do a review of a few readings. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling on really badly. It's because I'm tired. Sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking I want to create an altar for that deity as well, because that's something that came up in that reading, that Kimmy felt that perhaps it was this particular deity that I might want to work with, and I think she's right. There's definitely something about that makes sense to me, and I would like to maybe create a simple altar for her. So it could be actually a really handy way of having small devotionals that I do for actually a couple of different deities, rather than being stuck kind of not knowing in my own flat, you know, not knowing, oh, which altar will I do my devotionals at today. If I only have, you know, if I only have one option, then it makes it a bit easier. Anyway, I've rambled on enough. I hope that made some sense. Excuse me, and I hope I'll be on here again maybe before Christmas. I think I'm going to make another quick video after this one and upload that next week, but yeah, I'd like to make another video as well as that on the solstice, on my experiences. I haven't made a video yet about any of the Sabbaths. Not about my, well, sorry, I have, but I haven't talked about my experiences after the event, which I usually do, or I think I've done for every Sabbath on my blog. So I'd like to maybe make a video after my solstice ritual next week. Okay guys, I'm gonna leave it there, and thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon, and have a wonderful solstice if I don't talk to you again before then. Bye.